What's up guys, I'm Dave, and this is Ludi Antiqui. Today I'm going to be reviewing one of the most violent video games ever made. A game that has an even more violent looking remake in the works right now. That game is Rise of the Triad, for MS-DOS. Rise of the Triad was developed and published by Apogee Software, and released by them at the beginning of 1995. You play as a member of Hunt, the high-risk United Nations task force, carrying out covert operations in international waters. You're doing reconnaissance in San Nicolas Island, some 20 miles west of Los Angeles, when you come under fire by the cult followers of El Oscuro, the Dark One. Learning that remote detonated bombs are exploding in LA, Hunt heads towards the nearby monastery that is being used as the cult's command center to put an end to El Oscuro and the Triad cult that he leads. Rise of the Triad, or ROT as it's affectionately known, actually started life as a pack of add-on levels for the mega-popular id Software game Wolfenstein 3D, using the ingenious title Wolfenstein 3D Part 2, Rise of the Triad. However, various creative differences between the Apogee team and id Software, the creators of Wolfenstein, led to ROT becoming a standalone title independent of the Wolfenstein series. This heritage led to Rise of the Triad becoming a unique bridge between the first and second waves of first-person shooters, being both the pioneer and swan song of many future and former staples of the genre. Walls are limited to 90-degree angles, but at the same time, ROT was the first shooter to have room-over-room capabilities, with various catwalks and floating gravitational anomaly disks. ROT was also one of the last mainstream first-person shooters to have a limited amount of lives and keep track of points, with hilariously named bonuses given at the end of each level for performing certain actions, like a Democrat bonus for never shooting your handgun, and a Republican bonus for blowing up all of the decorative trees. Some other neat features that were programmed into the engine were dynamic lighting, bullet holes left in shot walls, jump pads, which launch you high into the air, and in some levels, fog. Rise of the Triad was also the first shooter to allow you to select from multiple protagonists, each with varying speed, health, and accuracy. Not only that, reflecting the international nature of the United Nations, each member of Hunt comes from a different ethnic background, making ROT the first FPS that lets you play as a non-white, and the first time you could play as a strong female lead. Female enemies were even planned, but ended up being cut to keep down memory requirements. ROT also has the dubious honor of introducing weapon limits, allowing you to carry only one missile weapon at a time, which maybe wasn't such a great addition to the genre. Of course, Rise of the Triad is a shooting game, so none of this matters if the game isn't any fun to play. Luckily, in that department, ROT doesn't disappoint. Levels are varied and challenging, filled with intelligently placed items, enemies, secrets, and architecture. While enemies are mostly brain-dead, they each exhibit unique enough behavior to keep things interesting, and the weapons that you use to kill them are filled with character and fun to unleash on the hordes as they try and take you down. What's more, there are hazards scattered throughout each map that are dangerous not only to you, but to your foes as well, allowing for many satisfying opportunities to learn them to a bloody death. In fact, as I mentioned at the beginning, Rise of the Triad is extremely gory, even for a first-person shooter. Doom introduced the idea of enemies being reduced to a pile of gibs and receiving extreme damage, but in ROT they explode into a disgusting fountain of ludicrous gibs, with viscera flying everywhere. There's even a cheat code to permanently enable these ludicrous gibs, which makes for a bloody mess all around. You can also burn enemies alive, and choose to execute the occasional lightning guard who begs for mercy.
Please! No! Don't shoot! Please! No!
All of this could lead to a very dark and depressing game, but ROT never takes itself too seriously, and is a breath of fresh air in this current era of machismo-filled military shooters. Various power-ups can be found throughout the game, including God Mode, which turns you into an invincible 8-foot-tall moaning deity who can disincorporate others at will, Dog Mode, which turns you into a 2-foot-tall dog with both a nasty bark and bite, and Shrooms, which is as good an anti-drug advertisement as any. Also, the music, almost completely composed of then in-house musician Lee Jackson, is fantastic, especially when played through Gravis Ultrasound, with dozens of tracks that go from pounding to pensive, which always keep things interesting. Probably owing to Doom's enormous popularity as a multiplayer game, Rise of the Triad was built from the ground up with multiplayer in mind, with both 11-player local area network play and head-to-head play available. There are various game modes to choose from, including Deathmatch, Capture the Flag, Tag, and a mode called Hunter, where one person without weapons has to escape from everyone else. And though it's a bit of a pain to get working on modern operating systems, it can be a lot of fun. Also worth mentioning is a ROT port for Windows, which allows for native widescreen support, much higher resolution textures, mouse look, and TCP/IP support, making multiplayer games a little bit easier to play. Also, far more exciting, at least to me, last year Interceptor Entertainment announced that they were creating a remake of Rise of the Triad and released a trailer. Here's a small part of it.
Oh, baby!
This new Rise of the Triad should come out later this year for only $15. While you're waiting for it, or if you just want to play a fantastic shooter, pick up your copy of the original ROT either from 3drealms.com or from one of my favorite websites, GOG.com. I've put links to everything I've mentioned in the description below. If you've enjoyed this episode, watch some of my other gaming videos and don't forget to subscribe.